pre-initiation or before a formal initiation. Alexander, go ahead and please tell us how to pronounce your family name, because it is a bit difficult for us to pronounce it. Okay, please go ahead.
Dear Professor Nekafar, thank you so much for the invitation.
Alexander, we can't hear you very well. You may speak a bit louder or closer to your microphone.
Yes, I will speak a little bit louder if it's okay. Dear Professor,
yeah, thank you.
Dear Professor Nekafar, thank you once again for your kind invitation. It was really a pleasure and honor to me to be a part of this wonderful event. I already told my professors and colleagues about your idea and how are you performing it, and it is wonderful way how young people are able to learn and to see and to watch what they should do in the future. So I'm really pleasured and honored by your invitation, and I'm glad that you actually found that our article is important for dental society, as we also thought when we were started preparing it. And I definitely believe that it will be just a start for a new and future very interesting papers that will be published in Endodontic section. So also for this occasion, I would like to thank Dr. Zahra, your student, for her kindness, and I really try to help her about her prep for this actually event. So my pronunciation of my last name you asked me for. I completely understand that it's a little bit hard for you, but it is Yakovlevich.
Yakovlevich.
Yakovlevich. It is little
Yakovlevich. Okay, that's great.
Yes. You can say Alex or Alexander. It's really nice. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Yakovlevich. And I prefer actually to carry on speaking with you and call you Alex, because you are now a very close friend of mine. And thank you very much for your kindness. Again, before we officially initiate, I'm going to ask Zahra to introduce herself. Zahra is one of my very talented postgrad students. Actually, she is in the last year, so she is doing her thesis as well. So she is very busy, but I choose her because I believe she can do that very well. And the way that we do this journal club is because we want actually to have some sort of challenge between our new generation endodontist and the generation of endodontists that they already published very important publications like the one that we have today. So Zahra, please go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us some word, and then we will introduce others as well.
Thank you, Dr. Nekufar. Hello, everyone. This is Zahra Mohammadi. I'm postgraduate student of Tehran University of Medical Science. It's a great honor to be here and present this very good paper.
Thank you.
Hope you have a very good time together.
I'm sure, and I trust you are going to give us a very good presentation, and obviously feel free to challenge Alex as well. And then, because I'm sure Alex is ready to answer all the questions. And this is the goal of this journal club. And this is the somehow the innovative part of that. I'm happy actually that between us already we have the professors from different universities around the world. I can see Professor Delvarani. I can see Professor Taher from Iraq, and Professor Delvarani is from Azad University, which is somehow the competitive university to Tehran University of Medical Sciences. And also he is one of the very important person in dentistry in Iran. So I can see many, so far, I can see many familiar faces and familiar names. Please feel free, everybody, to turn on your video when we start, because then Zahra, Alex, and us can see you, and it gives us a very good atmosphere of good communication rather than just speaking and just like offline communication, because the importance of this way of communication is to challenge each other and speak with each other. Thank you very much. I like actually to say my appreciation and say thank you to all of the team of Tehran University of Medical Sciences, Maliha Aladdini and Zara Sadeghi, who did a great job for advertisement and give information to all of you, preparing everything, preparing website, and also they are with us and helping us for management of all the process of the recording, put that in the website, put that in the Facebook and everything. So for the future, they are going to be with you and communicate with you as well. So I'm going to ask Maliha also to say hello to you. Maliha, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor Nekoufar. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Hello, everyone, and I'm very happy to be here on the first APEC International Online Journal Club. And this is very exciting, and we can't wait to hear from Dr. Mohammadi and also Professor Alexander. I'm not actually, I can't pronounce his last name again, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm not trying even. And I'm happy to help anyone.
Yakovlevich. Yes, Alexander, can you repeat that again for us?
Yakovlevich.
Yakovlevich. Because you should know that, Maliha, because you should put that in the website. You should the person who should know that.
Yeah, I like just phonetic. I put it in the website. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much. And I can see one of my colleagues, if I'm not wrong, Hazir Yusuf Shahi. I think Hazir is from India or Pakistan. Am I right, Hazir? Please turn on your microphone, say some good words, and then we will go.
Hi, Doctor. No, I'm from Iran. I'm postgraduate student of second year in Islamic Azad University of Tehran branch.
All right, that's great. So you are one of the Professor Delvarani team. I should be careful. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. That's great. Before again, we still have 7 minutes to officially start. I'm going to give you some history of or a short history of these sessions. When we start our journal club, our online journal club in Tehran University of Medical Sciences, we understand that there are a lot of good results from this type of discussion together. So we decide actually to carry on and working together more globally. So now we have a very important person with us, Professor Ibrahim Abu Tahoun, my mentor and my role model, I would say that. He's the president of the educational committee or the head of the educational committee of Asian Pacific Endodontic Confederation. And on the shadow of the educational committee that I am proudly is a member of, I'm a member of the educational committee, we work together and we decide actually to have this online journal club on the shadow of Asian Pacific Endodontic Confederation to make it larger. So I'm going to ask Professor Abu Tahoun to say some introductory talk before we officially start. Professor Abu Tahoun, please go ahead. And I know you back from a very difficult COVID-19 infection. Thanks God you are back now and we have your nice smile and happy face.
Thank you very much, my brother, Professor Mohammed. I really appreciate all your efforts to APEC Educational Committee. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you warmly. Really, you are a great gain to our committee. We are back to track, me and you especially, after we passed difficult times with the COVID-19. Alhamdulillah, everything now is going back to track, and hope all humanity will get rid of this disaster, which is called Corona. Thank you very much for allowing me to address the participants. I would like just to thank you and thank our professor and all the participants here. I can see we have with us also Dr. Mehmed, who is the president of the Asia Pacific Endodontic Confederation. A great honor for me to be part of this discussion, or at least as a participant. We have also Professor Alexandra are with us also. I want to welcome him on behalf of you all. Thank you very much as the chairman of the Education Committee of APEC. I'm sure this discussion is going to add a lot to our concept, to our understanding, to this very important issue. And Mohammed, we can't find anyone better than you to run this discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Abu Tahon. So I'm going to use this opportunity to ask our leader, Professor Mehmet Beber Kayahan, the president of Asian Pacific Endodontic Confederation, which contains actually, I think, more than 50 countries, association, Endodontic Association of 15 countries by the global background. Professor Kayahan is also the president of the Turkish Endodontic Society. So far I can see that now we have many people from around the globe. That is a great opportunity to speak to each other. And the good thing is there is no border for science. There is nothing behind the science. So we are united together according to what we have in common, which is endodontics. Professor Kayahan, please go ahead. Professor Kayahan, we cannot hear you yet. Deborah? Okay, while we are waiting for Professor Kayahan to check the technical issue, I'm going to tell you something about the important topics that we are going to discuss today. As you know, all of you know that every day our patients approach us. Hello? Oh my God, I am disconnected. Hello?
Here we have your voice and your video as well.
Okay, so you have me. All right, then. I think I'm disconnected. I think Barbara is disconnected at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. As you know, every day we are actually encountering many of our patients that they ask us about the maybe the consequences of apical infection and the possibility of the effect of the apical infection on their health. So when I did my review of the literature, I understand that that is really a great publication, which is not officially or hard copy of that is not published even yet. And this is published just electronically about this very important question, which is the consequences of apical infection on the patient's health and the whole body health. And obviously the heart disease is one of the very important ones. So the patient may ask you, if I leave this infection here, is it going to be harmful for my heart, for my kidney, or for my health? This is a big question. And in the literature, I find it out, there are some publications, but the publications, they already have a lot of problem. And we know that some of the publications, they are not good enough to rely on them. So we need to filterize the literature according to their claims. And this is the job that Alexander and his team or his colleagues, including Professor Dummer, my professor and my mentor, they did a very great job. And you know that also Venkatesh Babu, who is a very good scientist, and he is also the associate editor of the International Endodontic Journal. They worked together in the team that Alexander was the first author. They put together all the publications about this very important question that Zahra is going to give us some idea about it to answer this big question. And they did a very great job in terms of umbrella review. They put everything together. They put all the systematic reviews together. So speaking about systematic reviews means that we are speaking about huge number of publications. Some of them are good, some of them are not good enough to give us the conclusion. So they put together all the knowledge so far, and now they are going to tell us and give us a very important answer to this question. So before I ask Zahra to start, I think Professor Kayahan is back now. So Professor Kayahan, please, you officially start the first session of APEC and the TUMS Online Journal Club under the name of Appraise to Raise. Please.
Appraise to Raise. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Thank you. Greetings from Istanbul. Greetings from Turkey. I hope you are all well and everything is going good. Unfortunately, we are going through very hard times, but science continues and you are the boss. Maybe I am the president, but you are the boss because you are the brain of this organization. Thank you very much for your support. And I also see Professor Abu Talun there. Thank you. He is our committee leader, education committee leader. I'd like to thank you all for participating and joining to this respected organization. And I'd like to thank Professor Alexander Yakovlevich. Thank you very much for your support and for your contribution. I wish also Professor Nekofar a happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much.
There are 2 days, but happy birthday to you. We Endodontics works, Endodontology really loves you, Mohammed. Thank you very much for your support. Please, I think you have to start because you are the boss of this organization. Thank you very much. And I hope this will be a very nice meeting, a very scientific meeting. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Please.
Thank you very much, Professor Kayahan, and thank you all. And I can see a lot of names, and Professor Talal also. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Very surprising. Thank you very much, Melia. Thank you all. Okay, Doc, I can see Professor Akpinar also joining us, Professor Taher, Professor Talal from Syria. So that is a great opportunity to be together. And the reason that we choose also this time and this day, as you know, is based on the voting that happens. You gave us your idea about the best time. So we put together all the opinions. So this time of the day and this particular day is the one that you choose. So every month we are going to have, hopefully, this gathering and discuss these scientific papers with each other. Professor Talal is between us. I asked him actually to choose one of his students for the next month. So we are going to do that. I've received actually a message from Professor Taher from Iraq that Professor Taher wants to have a message before we officially start. Please, Professor Taher, please turn on your microphone and your video and speak. Professor Taher from Iraq.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Professor Mohammed. Chance to have a meeting with our respected colleague.
Professor
Sorry,
Taher,
I hid in my.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, because there is a very unstable connection. I don't think. Thank you very much. Well, we have some controversy between the endodontist and the maxillofacial surgeon. We are guiding to remove, and you are guiding to keep. But nowadays,
before you go ahead, Professor Taher, let me introduce Professor Taher. Professor Taher is a maxillofacial surgeon from Iraq. Actually, he's one of the consultants in London. So he joined us as a maxillofacial surgeon because this topic is very attracting for him. I know he actually teaches this topic for the maxillofacial surgeon, the communication between the apical disease and the whole body health. So we are going to have a big challenge, Alexander, with Professor Tahir as well. Be ready for that. Okay, Professor Tahir, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. So this is the controversial point between the endodontist and oral surgeon, that we are trying to remove the focus of infection in order to remove the systemic problem. You are trying to keep the tooth and the periapical infection, but with resolving, not with the staying. So I appreciate your effort as endodontists over all the world to save the life of the tooth and to save the life of the human body. Thank you very much for this chance to have my opinion.
Thank you very much. And now we have also Professor Talal Al-Nahlawi from Syria. You know him very well. He is one of the very famous endodontists. He has got a lot of innovative approach in endodontics as well. So I'm going to ask him also to give us some introduction, because as I said, I already asked him to choose one of his students for the next month, and I hope he is going to accept and put the challenge from Iran to Syria for the next month. Talal, please go ahead.
Hi, Professor. It is nice opportunity to be with you all. Thank you. A lot of great friends, Professor Ibrahim, and really, it's great things great efforts that you are doing and gathering all great speakers from everywhere and trying to speak about this journal club. Hi, my friend, Dr. Professor Ibrahim. Really missing you, missing all the meetings we had previously, and hopefully that this COVID will stop preventing us from traveling and see each other. So thank you very much, Professor Mohammed, for giving me a chance to be with you here today. Actually, I asked a lot of my students to join, and hopefully that we'll be able to understand more the idea, and I will come back to you with a positive reply.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Zahra, the stage is yours. You can share your PowerPoint with us and start first presenting the article which is published by Professor Alexander and Professor Venkatesh Babu and Professor Domer and a great team. And then we are going to speak about that first, and we ask our questions from Alexander Jakovovich, if I pronounce his name correctly. Okay, Zahra, go ahead.
Hello, everyone, again. This is Zahra. Today, I aim to present this umbrella review titled Association Between Cardiovascular Disease and Apical Periodontitis, authored by Yakovlevich, Duncan, Nagendra Babu, Yasimovich, Milasin, and Professor Domer. It's an open source. The ePrint is available on IEJ. It's published electronically, but not published yet. So firstly, let's see what's an umbrella review. An umbrella review provides the highest level of evidence as they combine the result of published systematic review or a meta-analysis. They use a valid, reliable tool that named AMSAR, which appraise systematic review to improve methodological quality of reviews for the benefit of authors, referees, editors, and readers. You can see a very good paper I cited in the yellow box. That's a glossary for systematic review written by Professor Nagendra Babu and Professor Domer. You may find interesting information in this regard. If you want to see the checklist, you may go to amstar.ca and find the checklist. It has 16 items. You fill the answers options as yes, partially yes, and no, and the site will calculate it and give you the quality of review. Back to the main topic, an apical periodontitis is a persistent inflammatory process within the periapical tissue of a teeth with an infected root canal system, and is a consequence of complex interplay between microbes, the virulence factors, and the immune system of the host. The disruption of two supporting tissue is due to local activation of host innate and adaptive immune system. Although apical periodontitis is considered as a local pathological disorder, there are many studies that evaluate the association between apical periodontitis and cardiovascular disease or other diseases like diabetes. So let's see what is cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is a heterogeneous group of disorders that
can I ask you,
yes.
Zahra, sorry, can I ask you to stop? Because before you go further, because you already speak about the umbrella review, I'm going to ask Alexander to give us some words about just in general about the umbrella review. Speaking about umbrella review, I think gives us a very important idea about what we are going to speak. Alexander, please.
Thank you, Professor Nakafar. Before I start with the reply to your question, I would
Alexander,
like...
can you speak louder, please?
Yes, I will speak louder, please, sorry. I answer to your question. I just once again, just really would like to thank you for your kind invitation and to announce that this is a great opportunity for young people to learn and to be able to see what is actually current and what is going to be, what will happen in the future with the science in endo. Actually, that's a great opportunity. Also, I would like to thank to Professor Kayafan for their presence and the other professor that I'm not that I really don't know them personally, but thanks to all colleagues that they are attending this wonderful event. Before I even start with the explanation of item or term umbrella review, I just would like to say that also thank you, Dr. Zahra, for accepting to review this and presenting us this paper to the Endodontic Society. On the second slide, Dr. Zahra was telling us something about AMSTAR evaluation tool.
Zahra, can you go back to that slide, please? Can you go back to that AMSTAR, please? Yep, Alexander, please.
Yes, and as you're able to see on this slide, Zahra told us about AMSTAR, and about 11 items, but she, if you were listening very carefully, she was mentioning 16 items. Correct, because there is another AMSTAR 2 level, AMSTAR number 2. This was the first AMSTAR tool for evaluation, but the same group of authors actually thinking about improving the AMSTAR assessment tool, and they make upgraded version, which is related to randomized and non-randomized clinical trials, which is really important. So the observational studies could be systematic reviews. Observational studies could be included in the final evaluation. That's just the minor correction of the talk of Dr. Zahra, but it's really wonderful. Another really important thing that you asked me, it is about umbrella review. For everyone who is actually striving to work in science and hopefully trying to find really important questions in science, we are always searching for the level of evidence. This is really important thing, because with the possibility to evaluate the highest potential level of evidence, and this is actually what umbrella review as a tool provide us. For example, before umbrella, systematic review and meta-analysis was the highest possible level of evidence that we could choose to evaluate some association, relationship, causality, however do you want. But now, when we have overarching ability to analyze a review of systematic review, in this regard, we use umbrella, which is really powerful tool for assessing the highest possibility level of evidence. So this is very revolutionary in scientific society. And I really hope we will continue with these umbrella review because they gave us really answers to really important questions in whole dental science, actually, to tell that. So if it's okay, I prefer that Dr. Zahra continue.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good point. Zahra, carry on, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yakovlevich. Let's back to cardiovascular disease. As I said, it's a heterogeneous group of disorders that including coronary heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, and the like. Cardiovascular disease claims roughly around 17.9 million lives annually, and is estimated to grow 10% over 20 years. Let's see the correlation between apical periodontitis and some of cardiovascular disease. As you know, atherosclerosis is an underlying pathological mechanism of the most common cardiovascular disease. The accumulation of inflammatory immune endothelial and smooth muscle cell, connective tissue element, lipid, and debris on the inner layer of the artery can make arteriosclerotic plaque. And persistent apical periodontitis can cause transient bacteriemia and constitutes low-grade systemic inflammation. And a variety of microorganisms may infect cells in the arterial wall, stimulate local inflammation, activate adaptive immune response. So increased inflammatory activation leads to plaque rupture and thrombus formation, which cause ischemia and fraction of affected tissue. On our professional life, there is no other days that our patient ask about is there any relationship between apical periodontitis, endodontic infection, and cardiovascular disease, and we have no answer for that because the systematic review around this topic is inconclusive and inconsistent. So it is important that to do an umbrella review to find the problem with the previous study and to check whether it is necessary to do some more studies or not. So the aim of this umbrella review was to determine whether there is an association between cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis in the adult population and evaluate and report deficiencies and gap in knowledge in this area. Let's move on to methods.
Zahra, I want to stop you again.
Yes.
Sorry. Can you go back to the biological
Yes.
correlation slides? Because that slide was very informative. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I think for this one, we can now raise some questions as well. So if there is any question from all the participants, now we are almost 100 together. So if there is any question, you may raise your hand and I can turn on your microphone, or you can speak, or you can type it in the chat. There is a question first about the AmStar. So I raised the question, Zahra or Alexander, each of you can answer. The first question that I have received is about the number of the items in AmStar 1 or AmStar 2, which is 16. But the question said that, is 11 enough, or we need to fill all 16? Zahra, you first answer the question, and then I ask Alexander to add to that.
There is two versions of AmStar. AmStar, which contain 11 items, and AmStar 2 contain 16 items. So there are some difference. This version of 2 have more.
That means that the AmStar 2 is somehow more complete comparing to AmStar 1 in terms of evaluation of the all the let's say articles published previously. But Alexander, can you add something to that?
Yes, I would like to add something about AmStar 2. AmStar 2 actually. What is the difference between the first and the second version of the AmStar? In the second version of the AmStar with the 16 items, we actually have 7 items that are defined as the critical domains. So if one or several analyzed systematic reviews does not fit those critical domains, they are actually categorized as low quality. So these 7 are really obligatory. So it's necessary to fulfill these criteria to be moderate or high quality level in that critical assessment, critical appraisal of the study. That's the difference between, and of course, I already mentioned that the also important difference is that in the second version, we are able to, we are allowed actually to include observation, non-randomized clinical studies for the evaluation. That's the 2 most important differences between these 2 versions.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second issue that I want actually to speak about is the biological correlation. Oh, I think Professor Kayahan wants to add something. Professor Kayahan, please go ahead. Turn on your microphone and speak, please. Professor Kayahan, you should turn on your, okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
I want to ask about the last slide. Frankly, do you believe in transient bacteremia during root canal treatment? Do you, I don't know, is there any literature or manuscript that really shows the transient bacteremia or not? I am not sure about that.
Okay, so the question that Professor Kayahan raised is very close to the one that I want to emphasize on that. I think before we go ahead and look at the systematic reviews and look at the evidence, because evidence are somehow very pure, or they don't show anything without scientific background. But in biological evidence, when speaking about the biological evidence, we need to somehow logically make something which we don't know perfectly about that, and we don't have enough evidence sometimes for our biological and logical evidence. So therefore, our ancestors, they try to find a way to correlate issues together. But these days, scientifically, we use evidence and we just rely on evidence. But evidence itself, without biological correlation, hasn't got any meaning. Therefore, looking at bacteremia or transient bacteremia means that we are looking at the history of the biological correlation. Therefore, I think Zahra shows other possibilities as well, like atherosclerotic plaques, that because of the accumulation of inflammatory and immune cells at the arterial level. So this is the issue of biological evidence that should be confirmed by the scientific and by the experimental evidence. So I ask Alexander to add something to this slide. Alexander, please.
Okay. This morning I was writing one systematic review relating to adverse pregnancy outcomes and apical periodontitis, and actually the whole idea about the correlation is just related to that potentially direct mechanism of spreading microorganisms from oral cavity to fetal placental unit. So this is, and actually, if we have to be people in endo, I believe, need to be more smarter and more wide open. Why? Because if we look the studies published in Periodontology, you will see a lot of evidence, a bunch of evidence that actually transition bacteremia is actual and it's happening, and there is a lot of high modern technologies in microbiology that prove that, for example, bacteria from oral cavity were found in fetal placental unit. And we also, I just opened the paper that our paper, and I cited doctor, just a second to show you. It was doctor, just a second, Kazanci, the paper from 2005, talking about transition bacteremia. There is a lot of evidence, but of course, I do really agree with you that we need to be carefully when we are evaluating those papers. And that is the thing that we need. That's the reason why we need to search high level of evidence. And I really think that that's the way. So we cannot say that there is no bacterium. That's my strong opinion, and I strongly believe in that. So it is just a question from where, from which oral pathology, and actually what is the consequence of that bacteria. The apical periodontitis is not a local event. We know that. From the pathophysiological point of view, we know that there is a low-grade systemic inflammation, and other systematic reviews point that. Gergiu from ACTA, from the Netherlands, they actually pointed, that's the paper published in Journal of Endodontics last year, they actually pointed that there is a low level of low-grade systematic inflammation present in the human body. So we need to be really more careful when we are interpreting that, and really more careful when we, for example, say there is no bacteremia, or if there is. So much more quality studies with the microbiological evaluation are necessary to confirm these data.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think this is a very challenging question. So we will go back to this question after a while, because we need to know about the difference between acute and chronic infection. And obviously in gingival abscess or periodontal abscess, we have really an acute bacteremia comparing to the preapical disease, which contained inside the bone. Okay, Zara, do you want to add something about the variety of microorganisms that you put in the purple part that may inflect cells in the arterial wall? Is it different from the first one, Zara?
I think yes. I think the answer of the which was very good, and it was explained everything.
Okay, yeah. So that means, speaking about the different microorganisms, you agree with that different organisms, they may play different roles in terms of the atherosclerosis that can happen. So we need actually a core of the bacteria that around it, we have immune cells, that these infected cells may create some sort of obstacle inside the vessels in the coronary artery. That is the theory behind it. So let's see what evidence is going to speak about it. Okay, Alexander, please.
I just would like to add a sentence or two to your hypothesis. The pathogenesis of atherosclerosis is well known. It is really well known, well investigated, and well presented. The point is, what is the capacity of the bacteria from oral cavity to be included in that process? You know, that's the point. So the bacteria, or I prefer to call microorganisms, because my previous investigations were related to herpes viruses infection in apical periodontitis. So I always say different microorganisms, fungi, yeasts, so they have their virulence factors have ability to start acute or chronic inflammation. That's the point. It's a cascade reaction. Can actually happen anywhere in the human body. So that's the point. We need just to know what is the capacity of the bacteria from the oral cavity to be included in the process of pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. That's the important thing.
Okay, thank you. Zahra, please.
Okay, let's move on to method. This umbrella review was performed according to PRISMA guideline and registered in the Prospero database. And here is the question: is there an association between cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis? And they measured the outcome using prevalence of apical periodontitis in human adult with or without cardiovascular disease when diagnosed using intraoral periapical, panoramic radiograph, and CT. Let's see selection criteria. They include systematic review with or without meta-analysis that evaluate the relationship between cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis, and excluded case reports, clinical studies, laboratory studies, animal studies, and narrative reviews. They search the electronic database, as you can see, the names from inception to May 2020. There was no language restriction, and the key concepts of interest were apical periodontitis and cardiovascular disease. And they used a trial and error approach to find the best strategy of search. Unpublished manuscript, conference paper, and other great literature were searched too, and additional search were performed in the reference list of the included reviews and relevant narrative reviews. A screening of title and abstract and full text were done by 2 independent reviewers, and this agreement with these 2 reviewers were resolved by the help of third one. Duplicates were removed from the search result of various databases using EndNote Online Reference Manager software. Data extraction form was performed by those 2 independent reviewers, and this agreement were resolved discussing with the third reviewer. As you can see, the form included names, country of the first author, year published, name of the journal, number of database used to search, number of study included, quality assessment tool, outcome assess, and meta-analysis model, and effect size IQ statistic. For quality assessment, they use AmStar tool, and those 2 independent reviewers provide their decision of yes, partial yes or no for 16 items of AmStar 2. And this agreement was resolved by a third reviewer. Here you can see a Prisma fellow diagram. As you can see, 1,080 records identified through database searching, which remain 915 after duplicate removal. They removed 907 after title and abstract screening, and 4 after full text reading, which was because of 3 of them were narrative reviews, and 1 did not address the aim of this umbrella review. And at the end, 4 study remains, and only one of them, coupled with meta-analysis. Let's see the included systematic review.
Okay.
First one.
Yes. Zahra, again, I want to interrupt you. Can you go back to the previous slide?
This one?
Yes, this one. We can see that. Thank you, Zahra. We can see that in this slide, Alexander and the team, they did a great job. I think, Alexander, this is also a very important question that most of our young colleagues, they may ask about it. This is about wow, you look at 1,080 articles, but in reality, this 1,080, they are not really necessary to search, because you already know that they are not systematic review. Why you don't make it easier for such things? And then you said that you remove 915 as the duplicate, and we can see such things in most of the systematic reviews, that they show the very big number on the top, and they reduce and then end up with something like 4 or 8 articles. What is the reason behind all of these numbers and this huge number? Why we do such things? I know the answer, but I want actually you to speak about it, because I want to give some important message to our young students. Please go ahead.
I will say one unconventional answer, actually. I have in our team, we have a really good librarian. She's an expert for database searching. We are really proud of her job, actually, because, you know, when we ask her, dear friend, please, we need to search that, and that, and she just asks us, okay, when it's necessary, tomorrow, in a few hours. No. Beside that, okay, why it is important? If in the process of in the process of preparing systematic reviews or umbrella reviews, we actually need to be open as much as possible. So although I believe that I will find probably the most of duplicates in several databases, I need actually to search as lot as it possible, you know. So for example, and maybe one of potential problems was we didn't have access to Embase, one of the potential databases, but we covered all other possible databases that we have, you know, that is possible to search actually. So when your search is so comprehensive, you will find, as a result, you will have these results as you see, you know. There is 180 papers actually found, and after there is a program that actually duplicates, you will actually see that a lot of them is actually just parallel papers in different databases. So at the end, we actually have less paper to analyze. So if you want that your conclusion, if you want that your that is important for the reviewers also when we are analyzing the submitted systematic reviews for the analysis, I always search. I was always looking for the databases they are searched, for the number of papers they found, for the reasons for the exclusion. This is actually the core. This diagram, flow diagram, is the core of any systematic umbrella review. That's it.
Yeah, that is the most important things that I want to hear. That is the core of the study. So this slide people think that, okay, this is very boring because it's just about the numbers, but speaking about a systematic review and an umbrella review, I think this is the most important slides to show that the authors did a great job. Obviously, this is for us. Now, this is the end of a story. So we think, okay, that is easy to see that, okay, 1,000 paper. No, that is very important to make sure that we are not going to miss or to overlook even one important article. And sometimes when you compare the different systematic reviews that they did a job for just simple and one simple question, you can see the different authors select different articles. So this is very, very important that I want to emphasize, and I think Alexander covered that very well. Thank you, Alexander. Zahra, please go ahead and carry on.
Yes. Okay, let's have a closer look to the included systematic reviews. First one was authored by Khaliqi Nejad, 2016, published in Journal of Endodontic from USA. It was in English, and no meta-analysis was performed. 8 articles were included, which were clinical trials, case control studies, cross-sectional studies, cohort studies, and for assessment, quality assessment, they use a specific quality assessment scale based on 3 domains. Let's see the AMSTAR tool to check the quality of this systematic review. Overall confidence for this one was moderate quality. The authors color-coded the answer. As you can see, pink stands for no. And item 2, 6, 7, and 10 are pink. So let's look which one is. Number 3, item number 3 from AMSTAR 2 was no. Did the review authors explain their selection of a study design for inclusion in the review? And I checked in the Khaliqi Nejad review, and they claim that they performed the study in according to Prisma. So let's check Prisma. In inclusion part of Prisma checklist, we have explicit statement of PCOS. S stands for a study design. I have a question here. Explicit statement isn't justify or explain or include a study or not, because I think maybe there is 2 reasons for this flaw. One maybe there is a difference between Prisma checklist and AMSOR. And the second one is when an author said or claimed that we use this checklist, they didn't follow that. So I think it is important to check these two checklists. What do you think, Alexander?
That's a great question, Zara. That's a great question. And thank you very much for bringing this information data from Prisma. That is a very innovative way. Thank you very much, Zara. Okay, Alexander, you go ahead. And there is also another question from one of the participants, Professor Asadian. First, Alexander, please answer this question, and then we ask Hadi to speak.
Okay.
Alexander.
Professor Venkatish Babu, Professor Venki, and I, we were independently analyzed the studies in this by this AMSTER2 evaluation tool. So we were thinking that our idea was that you really explicitly need to say why you selected, as it was in the question. See carefully. Did the review authors explain their selection of the study designs for the inclusion in the review? For yes, review should satisfy one of the following: explain for inclusion only randomized clinical trials, or explanation only non-randomized studies, or including both. So I agree with Dr. Zahra that actually, however you want to call it, this design, they actually stated that in the methodology, but it was not the, because it was necessary that we have one unique answer to all studies, that is necessary for the future systematic reviews when they should be analyzed by the AMSTER2, that the actually the proper, how to say that, explanation why only those types of studies were included or not would be stated in the methodology section, you know, because sometimes, and you, Dr. Zahra, you asked me when we were talking about your presentations, if they did all included the reviews performed were in accordance with the Prisma statement, and you were not able to find for one. I told you sometimes you really need to carefully analyze all specific sentences in that review, so to be sure if they how to say fulfill that item or not. So our joint opinion of Professor Venki and I was that it was not explicitly stated, and that these things should be mentioned more carefully in future systematic reviews.
Good. Dr. Asadian, please turn on your microphone and ask your question. Dr. Asadian, can you hear me? You can speak up. And also there is another question from Dr. Kumar that he said, how can we add conference paper with low validity in umbrella systematic review? While we are waiting for Hadi Asadian to join and turn on his microphone, Alexander, can you answer this question from Dr. Kumar?
If this conference paper is published and it's systematic review, and if it's able to overview all necessary items from that paper, and if it's able to be cited, maybe it would be low quality conference, low quality paper followed by the grade, but if it's able to find a reference, proper reference, why not? That's the eligibility criteria are actually used for.
Okay, thank you. Hadi, please.
Hello, thank you very much for holding such a nice meeting. I would like to ask you a question first.
Hadi, the quality of your voice is not very good. Please speak a bit closer to your laptop.
Okay, is it more clear?
A bit better, but not very well.
So let me ask my question a bit later to speak through a headset. Probably. So you please go ahead, then I'll reconnect.
Okay then. So while we are waiting for Hadi to solve the technical problem, Zahra, you carry on, please. We give him another opportunity.
Okay, let's see the next item. Item number 6, which is did the review authors perform data extraction in duplicate or not? And here the Prisma checklist, and it's a described method of the data extraction from report independently and duplicate. So the study, it seems that they didn't follow Prisma literally. Number 7, did the review authors provide a list of excluded studies and justify the exclusion? Let's see the Prisma again. In eligibility, there is state the process of selecting a study. I think there is a difference between a statement and justify or explanation. So maybe this is this difference make this answer, this result. Let's see the number 10. Did the review authors report on the source of funding for the study included in the review? And in the Prisma, we have list and define all variable for which data were statements like funding sources. So,
what is the importance of this funding sources? Why it is important?
May I reply?
Yes, please, Alexander.
Also, I was also wondering why it's so important, but Professor Renke gave me a really great explanation. He actually told me that, Alex, when you have, for example, a lot of grants that you can pay open access, there is much more possibility that you will actually publish your own study. For example, when you don't have that is really important to state funding in all submitted papers. And I just want to this is really great. This is really great presentation for the parallel linking between Prisma and Amstar too. Just a comment of Professor Nekofar. Professor Nekofar, we were both included in the Appraise checklist. You are one of the steering committee members, I believe. Is that?
Yes.
Yes. And we, other 30 people, were included in a Delphi group for the analyzing of the Appraise checklist. We could explain the audience what does it mean. And if you are aware how explicitly must be stated some issue, something, some process methodology in the paper. It's not only that you stated I actually done everything by the Prisma guidelines or Prisma checklist. I need to, it is a little bit controversial, but it's really necessary for the reproduction, for the reproducibility of those processes, even if it's just a primary study or a systematic review. So if you can give us or your opinion about that, I'm really interested.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm in charge to ask questions, but you send actually something to me. But I do agree with you that is a very important thing to make sure that we cover all the information that is necessary. And if we put our hand together and make it a uniform for the future. So let's think about 10 years later, and people are put together what we are publishing from now in 10 years. And then if we follow everything and we try to follow a theme that we called it Pride or other things like Prisma checklists on other checklists. And in endodontics, we are now preparing on the shadow of Professor Damer and Professor Venki Babu, we are preparing a very large guidelines for any type of publication, animal study, systematic review, laboratory study, clinical trials, everything, to make sure that we are publishing very similar to each other, and we follow a checklist. Then in the future, after 5 years, 10 years, looking at this article, we can extract the data very, very easily and put them together for a better conclusion. We don't want actually to go to conclusion without enough justification, as you see that one in number 7, the question number 7 in answer 2. And in question number 10, Alexander, I believe the important thing about funding is also give us some sort of idea that some authors they receive some funding from some sources that may have some effect on the conclusion and on the result. If it is the case, and if they don't mention the funding, then there is a big question for their publication. It can be for the clinical trials or can be for a systematic review. But I do agree with you that it is important to follow the PRISMA, as Zahra showed that. When AMSTAR is just like a tool for evaluation, but PRISMA is some tool that before publication, we need that one. So for our fellow resident, fellow postgraduate student that they are with us in this journal club, it is important to know that when they want to publish even a simple case report, they should follow the checklist. And we are going now to give you the checklist very soon. Hopefully in another sessions or in another gathering, we are going to advertise that for you. And as Alexander mentioned, that Professor Venkatesh Babu is the head of this committee, and he's working on that very, very diligently. Okay, then, anything, Alex, do you want to add anything else?
No, thank you. I agree with you.
Okay, then. I think Hadi is ready now to speak. Hadi, you can ask your question from Alexander. Dr. Asadian, Dr. Hadi Asadian, do you want to go ahead? No? Okay, Zahra, you carry on.
May I add a little thing?
Yes, please.
I think there is a very big difference between PRISMA and AMSTAR. I mean, AMSTAR too. PRISMA is not that much, precise, I think, comparing to the AMSTAR. PRISMA is using for reporting and AMSTAR using for assessment. Maybe we should combine these two together. I don't know. Maybe.
Alexander.
May I just add one
yes,
my experience from publishing. It's a few months ago, we published one systematic review and meta-analysis in Journal of Endodontics, and to the prevalence of apical periodontitis in adult general population. And we actually used the, because it was an updated systematic review, we decided to, we were talking in the group which assessment tool we should use for the evaluation of the studies. And our first idea was to use the same assessment tool that it was used in the publications that we are updating. So it was logical, And we performed that analysis, and we were telling, if, for example, if reviewers told us that we need to use other assessment tool, okay, we will perform it. It won't be a problem for us. But both reviewers asked from us first to change the assessment tool, and we changed it in Castle-Ottawa scale, which was okay. We are aware of the quality, but additionally, they asked us to actually evaluate the stroke for all studies. And I believe that most of you heard for the stroke checklist. It is something like PRISMA checklist, but in the observational studies. So as Zahra told us a few minutes ago, this is just a checklist. This is not assessment tool. And if we now make that parallel to this case, PRISMA checklist is for example, obligatory checklist for the submitting of systematic reviews in papers. It is not the assessment tools. It is really important to know that the AMSTAR tool or the AMSTAR tool is the actual tool for critical appraisal of the included studies. That's the difference. And what we done, we actually had to follow the opinion of the reviewers. We evaluated the stroke checklist, but I'm not sure if it's meaningful or not.
Yeah, that's, I think, very clear that we need to distinguish between these two tools. And obviously, sometimes we may find something very detailed in the Prisma, and hopefully the Pride, which is the next generation of Prisma, is going to give more data, as Zahra suggested. Okay, Zahra, go ahead.
Okay, let's see the second one. It's an article authored by Gonzalez from Spain. No restriction in language. It was in Spanish and English. No meta-analysis. 15 articles were included. You can see the study design, and no quality assessment was not performed. Let's see AMSTAR 2. Overall confidence for this one is critically low, and as you can see, many items are pink. So here the items, as you can see, there are a lot of them. Let's have a closer look to their review. They didn't use any guideline or checklist to writing the report. So maybe this is the reason. The third one, authored by Berlin-Brauner, 2017, published in International Endodontic Journal from Canada. It was in English, no meta-analysis, 19 articles were included, and assessment quality were done in according to grade. AMSTAR 2, 3 items are pink, and overall confidence is moderate quality. Let's see the items. Item number 3, we discussed it already, and 10. Let's see number 2. Did the report of review contain an explicit statement that the review method were established prior to the conduct of review or not? Berlin-Brauner claimed that they did their reviews according to Prisma. So let's compare these two. In method section of Prisma checklist, we have indicate if a review protocol exists. But in AMSTAR 2, we have an explicit statement of prior.
Okay, Alexander, please.
You know, when you are trying to submit your paper for your project, your draft of the systematic review to Prospero, it's international database for the future systematic reviews, umbrella reviews, and meta-analysis. There is a you need to say that you didn't even start with protocol before you submitting it. And when you're submitting, when you submit it, actually, you receive actually the mail confirmation of that they include assessment of your protocol. So in the and when you receive the number, registration number, and when you publish that you actually that your protocol has a priori was reviewed, you know, in the Prospero, that's the highest level of evidence. So none of the Prisma could actually be how to say enough for us. The Prospero or other databases for the not only Prospero, there is a lot of different databases for the registration. That's the actually confirmation that you have a protocol that was posted a priori of your investigation.
Okay, Zahra.
Okay, thank you. Let's see the last one, authored by Amina Sharia, 2018, Journal of Endodontic from USA. It's in English, and for court study were included. Meta-analysis was performed finally, and quality assessment was great. Let's crack down the detail. It's the only one that conducted meta-analysis. The meta-analysis was conducted using random effect model to estimate the effect size, and with 95% confidence interval, heterogeneity was assessed using I2 statistic, and primary meta-analysis revealed a heterogeneity of 66.6%, and subgroup analysis, it was 0%. And there was no significant difference in the incidence of cardiovascular disease and in the patient with or without apical periodontitis. Let's say I'm start. Overall confidence for this one is moderate quality. 4 items are pink. So item number 3, did the review authors explain their selection of a study design? And it was no for this item. I just searched in their review and find this in the introduction part. They explain it, I think. What do you think, Dr. Yakovlevich, about this? I think they explain why they include cohort studies.
Okay, may I just reply to this answer also?
Yes, this is a very difficult question, Alexander, because you claim that they didn't explain their selection, but Zahra claimed that they did. What do you think?
Okay. This is the part from the introduction section, Zahra, is it correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
And Professor Nekofar, if you remember when we were analyzing some checklists, there are parts that need to be stated, specific sections of the paper, of the manuscript. So this is just, I personally know Dr. Anita from the Ohio Cleveland, and this is just this is just their opinion about why they should include the longitudinal studies, you know, and why this is actually, they explain the reason why they conduct this paper, you know. This is and this is the only reason, because there, for example, there are 5 studies and 3 studies, generally 5 studies related to this issue, and they excluded 2, included just 3 because they're longitudinal cohort studies. So, for example, they need an explanation why they performed meta-analysis and why they, the reason why they even submit the paper for the publishing. So I agree, the idea is really good. The explanation in the introduction section is correct, but if we are following some postulates, paper should be written and published, we need to explain the selection of the studies on the right place in the manuscript. Maybe it's a little bit strict and not correct for some people, but those are the rules.
Yep, I do agree with you now. I convinced Zahra. I think this is very important to make sure that we go to the details of the text of one publication or another publication, especially when we choose at the end 4 publications. I'm sure Alexander and his group, they go deeply to the details of the publication. Okay, thank you very much. Zahra, please make it a bit quicker because of the time.
Okay, and we already discussed about number 10. Let's see number 15. It's about adequate investigation of publication bias. And as you can see, Amina Shari claimed that they following Prisma. Let's see Prisma, and they should mention that, but they didn't. They mentioned the selection, the publication bias, but they didn't graphical or statistical test it. You know,
exactly.
This is the difference between 2 checklists again. Okay, in the discussion part, let's see why we need an umbrella review. An umbrella review evaluate and integrate the result of multiple systematic review, as you see, and identify potential gap in knowledge, summarize it, and identify methodological limitation in previous clinical studies and systemic. Let's back to the main question. Is there an association or not? Primary study suggests there is an association between 2, but systematic review did not support this. So their future high quality longitudinal studies are required for admit this. There's another question. When an association is a causal relationship, based on Bradford-Hill criteria, a strong association can suggest a causal relationship, and there should be consistency, specificity, and temporality. I mean, the exposure should precede the outcome, and biological gradient, coherence, and experiment. And best study design for this one is randomized clinical trials, and analogy and plausibility. let's see the plausibility of these two. I mean, cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis in literature. Primary studies have reported that a potential association between systemic disease and pathogenesis of apical periodontitis. Apical periodontitis associated with elevated level of systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is associated with the development of cardiovascular disease. So it's reasonable to assume that untreated apical periodontitis could have a arteriogenic effect and with a potential impact on patients' vascular risk. So, but the current review demonstrated a weak association between cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis. On the other hand, there are some confounding factors like smoking and genetic predisposition. As you know, they have effects on cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis. So within the limit of available evidence, the association that we see that does not imply causation. So here some.
Can you go back, because I think this one is very important. That the red one.
Yes.
Next
yes.
slide. Yep. Yes, Alexander. This is, I think, a very important state. Within the limits of the available evidence, the observed association does not imply causation. This is very important. Can you explain a little more about it, please, Alexander?
If you ask me personally, as not as a scientist, also as a scientist, I always we actually have here we have a problem with the evidence, the quality of the evidence. So exactly. When you carefully, for example, analyze animal models, we use animals to provide some experiments that are not ethically allowed on people. You agree with me? When we carefully analyze the animal models, there is association and causality also. But what is the problems? I cannot, use one cohort of volunteers, of people, and to make them, and to, as an animal, open their molars, leave the pulp open to oral cavity for I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, and follow those people in last 10 years with that open pulp and abscesses and all other complications, to see if some cardiovascular disease will develop. That is the main problem with this situation. We don't have direct link due to ethical reasons. We have only indirect links, which we can guess. But what is the problem? Those indirect links that are increased inflammatory mediators, the presence of bacteremia and other things, it could be caused by other different things. We are not switch on and switch off individuals. Our organs are connected. We are a complicated system. We are not working, my heart now will work and my liver won't work. My kidneys will work. Those are really complex interplay between all these mechanisms in our human bodies. And if you ask me personally, that part in the discussion, Dr. Zahra, is it myth or reality? In that in the paper you are presenting, I actually write that part, and I strongly believe that there is a link, but we cannot prove it because we have some ethical, and that's correct, there is ethical reasons why we could not perform this causation. And what is the solution? What is the solution for this problem? Large observational longitudinal studies. When I asked Professor Thomas Christ from Sweden in his last, at the last Biennale Essay Congress in Vienna, You know, Professor, they were talking about link between systematic disease and apical periodontitis. And I asked him, okay, Professor, you present us a lot of data, great database. For example, about any kind of cardiovascular disease, about any treatment, about any endo, procedure, status, and everything. And for example, I would that kind of study in my country. How is it possible? You know, in Sweden, we have a system for following the patients, one general medical history, you know, so they are able just to extract the data, you know, now I need something little bit like this, now I need something little bit by that, and I will make a study. The problem for us is that we cannot perform some experimental models on humans. And we, for example, need to search the model, a proper model on animal models, and to perform longitudinal observational studies. But just one more thing that I would like to add. In this year, Dr. Berlin Brunner, Julie from the Canada, that Zahra was talking about her systematic review included in this paper. They actually performed a really great, excellent study on animal, and I just open it just to see the exact name. It is a characterization of a mouse model to study the relationship between apical periodontitis and atherosclerosis. It was actually published in the International Endodontic Journal, volume 53, 812-823, number of pages. You all can find that paper. I will just a second. In Canada, they have a great laboratory. They have great facilities for those kind of experiments. The Professor Maria that is involved in these experiments are actually, Julie told me that they are basic, there's a lot of basic scientists included in that project. And they developed a mouse model of atherosclerosis. And I will now read the conclusion. It is really important. A novel mouse model which combines apical periodontitis and cardiovascular disease was created. This model allows investigation on the relationship between two diseases, whilst avoiding other potential common co-founders. It is really important thing. Although no difference in the degree of atherosclerosis was found between groups, more studies in which the number of periapical lesions changes in systematic inflammation and the degree of atherosclerosis are correlated are necessary to ultimately determine the impact of apical periodontitis on cardiovascular disease. So, just a second. Although they developed an excellent animal model, it's perfect, really perfect. We analyzed for this study, really perfect. They found no association, but is it that the end? No, I don't. We need to search more and more and more. That's my opinion.
That's great. Thank you very much, Alexander. I think now we have a spectrum of two opinions. On one side, people believe that there is no correlation. On another side, as you mentioned about animal studies and other biological correlation, you personally believe that there is a correlation and there is a causation of periapical disease and atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, obviously. And Professor Kayahan is worried about the focal infection theory that was ages ago, 80 years ago. It was a part of the endo. And he just typed to me that, oh, be careful, we are going back to the history of endo, focal infection theory. And this is that. But on the other hand, we have Professor Taher that he's very happy to tell him that we agree with him that, yes, there is a correlation between these two and causation as well. And obviously, I think you did a very, very important state that you said that we need very large longitudinal cohort study and go further and further and see what happened. And also Hajir also asked a question, and he said that, is there any correlation between number of pre-apical disease, number of apical periodontitis and CVDs or not, which you already mentioned that in the animal model, that is important. There are two more questions that I ask Zahra to carry on, and then we come back to the questions. Zahra, please.
Okay, let's move on to the strength of the current review. A prior protocol was developed, and not having a protocol before starting a systematic review may lead to significant methodological flaws, bias, and risk of publication, decrease the transparency of the study, and no language restriction. And they should use two independent reviewers, and disagreement should resolve by the third one. And they use AMSAR2. There was some limitation. Only one of the included systematic review performed meta-analysis and a small time interval. There was a serious methodological inadequacy and substantial heterogeneity among the primary studies. There are some future recommendations for clinical studies. For example, selection criteria should be reported in detail, and patient information like systemic disease or the other information should be reported. Sample size should calculate according to previous studies or a pilot study, and dropout should be reported, and when and why. Outcome measurement should be precisely reported. Apical periodontitis must be assessed by radiograph like pre-apical or CBCT rather than panoramic, and evaluate under standardized conditions, same screen, dark room, and using a validated scoring system. And for cardiovascular disease must be clearly defined. If a surrogate marker used, must be reported in detail. And type of cardiovascular disease and related diagnostic procedure should be reported. And future studies should evaluate the development of a specific condition, which is most common, like coronary heart disease and cerebrovascular disease. And each clinical study must report the method that used to assess the cardiovascular disease. And coexistence of other systemic disease and confounding risk factors should be reported too, as you can see the examples. And systemic medication should be reported, and follow-up should be enough. And there are some future recommendations for systematic review and meta-analysis to have a prior protocol, searching gray literature databases, and the inclusion of various study design in the review must be justified, and the method used to appraise the risk of bias of individual studies must be reported, and they should perform the subgroup sensitivity analysis, and the source of funding for the included study must be reported. At the end, to wrap it up, from the moderate to critically low quality evidence available showed that the current weak association exists between cardiovascular disease and apical periodontitis, and in future we need well-designed longitudinal clinical studies with long-term follow-up.
Thank you very much indeed, Zahra. You did a great job.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much. Thank you. And
Professor Mohammed, can I interfere, please?
Yes, please go ahead, Professor Abutan. Zahra, can you remove your share part? Then we can see all the images, all the videos. Thank you very much. Yep, Professor Abutan, please.
Yes, please. Luckily, my PhD thesis was in endodontic microbiology. And I want to say that I have some knowledge. First of all, I want to agree with the conclusion of the study with Dr. Alexander. The thing that I want to discuss here in brief is that, of course, all this discussion is a reflection of the focal infection theory. and that has created an exaggerated climate of bacteriophobia, of microphobia. The fact is that also with the misinformation now on the internet about the endodontic treatment itself, endodontic treatment and not endodontic disease will also add to this confusion. What I want to say is that, of course, the question was and still is, first of all, about, two words about bacterial, transit bacteria. Transit bacteria, or what we call anacoresis, which is actually a Greek word. If you go to the airport of Athens, you will find this word everywhere in the airport, in the screens. It means departure or dissemination of bacteria from one part of the body to other remote organs. Of course, in the airport, it means the departure of the airplanes, of the flights. Anyhow, what I want to say is that the question now was and still is, can bacteria from periapical lesions cause secondary disease, especially in remote parts of the body? A recent study in Finland, because Dr. Alexander has reported something about Sweden, I don't know what, claims that they found a relationship between apical periodontitis and cardiovascular diseases. For them, this is important because 1 in 4 persons in Finland, they have symptomless apical periodontitis. And this was very important. Anyhow, what I want to say is that as a conclusion, still, as you can see, the results are still unresolved. When endodontic disease or apical periodontitis or infection is established, what happens beyond the apical foramen is still open to speculation. No one knows what might happen from this point on. No one knows till now in the literature. In my opinion, I'm not aware of any article in the literature linking stroke, for example, directly to apical periodontitis. I couldn't find it. It is just some papers and many that sometimes they are repeating the same results, they are repeating themselves. What I want to say is that, in my opinion, this discussion today is very important because it emphasizes not the importance of the disease, but the importance of endodontic treatment. If treatment is delayed or if performed unsuccessfully, maybe in certain categories such as immunocompromised patients or I don't know, other patients might cause something. Of course, in the bacterial flora of endodontic infection, we don't find only bacteria. There are other microorganisms other than bacteria. And this is very important, such as actinomyces or I don't know what. I'm not now, this is not the time to discuss these details. But I want to emphasize the importance of endodontic treatment than the importance of endodontic disease. Thank you very much for this beautiful discussion motivated by Professor Mohammed Nikofar. Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for your, it was really, as you mentioned before, open-minded discussion that covers all the aspects of the subject. Thank you, our President, Dr. Mehmed, for raising the issue from the beginning about the transit bacteremia, because I don't know, these fears still exist. And I said these are all remnants of the focal infection theory. Thank you all, and hope I really enjoyed the discussion, and thank you all for this.
Thank you very much, Professor Ibrahim. Stay with us because Professor Shamshiri is going to speak, Professor Kumars, and then Professor Tahir is also going to give us the comments in some minutes. Professor Shamshiri is the epidemiologist who kindly joined us from the initiation of the talk. So Professor Shamshiri, please go ahead because I know you are an expert in this field. Professor Shamshiri, can you hear us? Everybody, it's your turn, please.
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you very well. Yes, very well. Very well. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have a question from Professor Alex. For evaluating the systematic reviews, is the technical issues in the topic. In this case, I want to point to the induction time induction time, I mean the minimum time from a start of apical periodontitis to induce cardiovascular disease in question, for example. In these 4 systematic reviews, are they considered the minimum follow-up duration? For example, as you know, when we diagnose AP and when we measure the cardiovascular disease, the duration of follow-up from 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or something else is completely make different relationship. Are they considered them? And the other question, it's related to umbrella review. Do you compare the references of these 4 systematic reviews? Is there any overlap between the references or not?
Thank you very much, Dr. Shamshiri. I think you also add something to the comment that we have received from Professor Abutahon about the duration of the disease. So the question, if I put, Alexander, these 2 comments together, so if we have a long-term preapical disease, has it got different effect from the initiation of the apical disease? And you already mentioned that it is ethically very difficult to find it out. So I ask you to answer this question and these 2 comments and these 2 questions, and then we go to the next questions by Hadi, Kumars, and Professor Tahir. Please, okay. Alexander.
You, Professor Shamshiri, I'm glad to see you and thank you for your questions. The first your question was related to induction time.
Alex, a bit louder, please. Louder, louder.
Yes. Induction. The first question was related to induction time. You know, we stated that in the paper, but Zahran maybe didn't find it relevant. That there are several methodological, flows of primary studies. You know, the induction time is not a problem of systematic review. Induction time is a problem of a primary study, you know, because, for example, you have only cross-sectional study design. I just need to see what's happened in certain moment. I was not interested what was before and what will happen. And we, of course, that we have a problem, you know. That's the problem of the primary studies. We maybe only 1 or 2 in a bunch of studies, primary studies, that were mentioned some kind of induction time, but it was not clearly enough that we can argue about. I know why you asked me that question. That's really reasonable. And another thing about umbrella review and the overlapping of the references. The point is that all 4 included systematic reviews had almost all the same references. And when Zahra told me about the Anita's paper from the longitudinal cohort studies, you know, for example, Professor Anita just included 3 cohort longitudinal studies and excluded all other 10 studies, you know, and she's got a paper. So that is also a problem with umbrella. And now that is not the problem of umbrella review. That is the problem of systematic review and of the reviewing process and of the editor-in-chief and of the publication policies and everything. So it's a little bit hard to, I agree. If you ask me, I think it's a redundant some redundant information, not publication. All publications are unique, but there is repetition of some data. I agree with you.
Do you want to say something about what Professor Abutahon mentioned, or you agree with him about his comments?
I completely agree with his comments.
Okay, thank you very much. So Professor Kumars Nazari, please, you go ahead quickly because time is finished, but we still have some minutes. Kumars, please.
Thanks to Dr. Nekufam, also Zahra, for excellent and brilliant presentation. As you know, when we have the instrumentation that confined into the root canal, we have a transient bacterium that we will dissolve at 4 or 5 minutes. It means that the immune system in human body can capture all of the bacteria as soon as possible. When we have some impaired immunosuppressant drugs or many other conditions that may threaten our immune system, that's right. The plug of the arteriosclerosis will be happen during inside the vessels. Also, we have something that happens in the human body. It means that the position of the lipid plugs or something like that will be happen by age. So how we can distinguish this normal happen from the disease, something like that. And also have it's, as you know, we have many treatment. I treated this for more than 50,000, and many of them maybe have some hidden cardiovascular disease that I don't know the exact entity. So nothing happened to them. I think, and the other side, it is impossible to conduct or carry on a research because many factors involved in cardiovascular disease. Thank you very much for your cooperation. And
thank you very much, Kumar. Thank you very much. Before I ask Alexander to answer or add some comment to your comments, I ask Professor Taher. Professor Taher, 1 minute, please. You go ahead. Professor Taher, I think
Hello.
the connection is not good. So
Yeah.
I ask
Thank you.
Professor Ramazani. Okay,
Hello?
Professor Taher is connected.
Hello?
Professor Ramazani, after
Hello?
Professor Taher. Yes, we
Hello?
hear you, Professor Taher. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. But I am asking the endodontist, have you had auditing review about how many endodontic has been done since the endodontic? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Carry on.
How many millions of endodontic treatment has been done, and how many cases of cardiovascular diseases implicated from this treatment?
Okay, thank you, Alexander. Kumars and Taher, they already mentioned their comments. You add something very quickly, and then we ask Professor Kayahan, Mohsen, and Hadi to speak.
Just to reply to Professor Kumars, now in this modern era of microbiology, my PhD was related to polymerase chain reaction and other microbiology techniques. It is possible to determine the existence of microbiome in some tissue. For example, at the beginning I was talking about bacteria in fetoplacental unit, and they use microbiome evaluation to investigate whether they originate from the oral cavity. So it is possible. We just need to find a good model to investigate it. That was my answer to Professor Kumars. And I didn't very well understand Professor Taher, so I could...
Professor Taher asked about the number of endodontic treatment and the number of people that they suffer from cardiovascular disease. Do you think it is possible to do that? Because we do a huge number of endodontic treatment, and he asked about this correlation again in general.
I'm not sure about the number of, is the number of endo treatment related to cardiovascular disease?
Exactly, that is the question.
You know, if we think logically, we use endo treatment to remove bacteria and to remove inflammation, for instance. So if there is no inflammation and if the endo treatment is good, perfect, I'm not expecting that there is going to be more bacteremia and more low-grade inflammation in the body.
Okay, thank you very much. Mohsen Ramazani and Hadi. Any of you who is ready, please turn on your microphone and speak. Hadi Asadian, are you ready? Go, please.
Can you hear me?
Not very well again, not very well again.
I wanted to ask Professor Alex about this question that whenever we find out that there is not enough evidence, higher level of evidence in terms of establishing a causal relationship between AP and CVD, and do we have, are we allowed to conduct another review article to even fortify this lack, or it is better for us to have more cohort studies or cross-sectional study designs in order to establish causal relationship? I think whenever we review the literature, the existing literature, and we find out that there is not enough evidence to support the causal relationship between these two identities, I think it's better to establish cohort studies in a more long-term fashion, or to establish cohort studies in multi-center fashion. And I think it's a much better evidence to support this causation. What's your opinion? And the second question I have is that there is a common factor, or let's say co-founder, between AP and CVD, and that is the psychological state of the patient. Because if the patient has a very poor psychological status, we have a process called psychological neglect. And in terms of psychological neglect, you can have more APs and even more CVDs. So it's a real strong co-founder that I think it was overlooked. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the first question, Alex, is somehow Hadi tried to ask this question very politely, but in reality, he is going to say that why you publish this umbrella review, it is too early to publish such a things. We need more evidence to publish such a things. So I asked that in a very non-polite way from you. Why you publish such a things?
You know, we actually performed this umbrella review because the results of previous systematic review is very inconsistent. You have one systematic review that there is an association, another that there is not, third that possibilities, you know, fourth, whoever knows, if all thirds say yes, I also will say yes. So the umbrella approach, you know, no hard feelings. You don't have that in papers. Sorry, no hard feelings. We have strict rules, and you know, I won't make me suffer from your comments if I'm not actually correct in front of dental society. You know, so I believe that this was really strong and hard approach, and I agree with Dr. Hadi. If you want, for example, if we want to make some conclusion in futures, we will need to make an update, but to include all those studies with the recommendation, not only from our umbrella review, from all other relevant studies that are talking about this issue. That's my opinion. The answer to the second.
Yes, second question is about the psychological background of the patient.
I heard it was.
Okay, good.
I completely agree with you that there is a lot of co-founders. That's another problem. The first problem is the ethical problem for development, and the second problem for cardiovascular diseases is a lot of co-founders. And I agree with Dr. Hadi that it should be evaluated as potential risk factor too. Completely agree.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask Mohsen to add some comment, and then Professor Talal Al-Nahlawi also, and then we end up all the comments with a comment from Professor Baber Kayahan. Mohsen Ramazani, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Nekufar. Hi, everybody attending this virtual meeting. Good evening from the north of Iran, located beneath the Caspian Sea. I have questions from the Professor Alexander about the systematic review rules. The question is, do I, for example, if I need to, in fact, prepare a systematic review, do I need effect sizes or confidence intervals from all the studies included in my systematic review in order to present a forest plot due to the homogeneity of the studies included in my review? For example, I want to plan to have a narrative synthesis of the findings as opposed to producing a meta-analysis. So I do hope to include effect sizes or confidence intervals where possible and to produce a forest plot. Is it acceptable to produce a forest plot with only those studies who provide the necessary information, or do I need to have effect sizes for all the studies included in order to include the forest plot?
May I reply?
Yes, please, Alexander.
Dear Professor Ramazani, if you need confidence interval and risk ratio or odds ratio, you will use it for meta-analysis.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. But in this regard, in this case, umbrella, it is possible sometimes. It is there are umbrellas reviews with all, for example, all the systematic reviews included in umbrella reviews performed meta-analysis. If authors actually see the necessity for overarching pooled meta-analysis, they are able to perform it. In our case, only one of 4 studies performed meta-analysis, and it was not possible actually to estimate or to evaluate their risk ratio, odds ratio. That's the problem with the systematic, on the level of the systematic review. But I agree with you that it is even possible, for example, to conduct another meta-analysis with already performed meta-analysis on the second level.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Talal, you give us your comments.
Thank you, Professor. I would like to thank Alexander for his nice comments, and I really enjoyed this discussion. Also, thanks to Zahra for the brilliant presentation. Actually, I do agree with most of you, because till now, maybe we need more data to judge or to have more evidence from umbrella review regarding to see or is there any potential or not. But actually, I do believe myself, logically, we may have a connection, but we are not able to make it evident by the umbrella that was done precisely, actually, by Alexander. Maybe 10 years later, the umbrella review of Alexander will be mentioned in another umbrella review, stating that there's something different or changed, especially if we have more larger and longitudinal studies that will have the better focus or evidence about this. But I would like to add a very small comment. I don't know if you agree with me or not. Going back to Professor Brahim about maybe we can take this treatment to have better outcome, to have less microbes in the oral, in the root canal system, in order to try to minimize the potential of anything that we are now not able to link with. So here I'm emphasizing, especially with the good results of vital therapy. Maybe if we, after 10 years or reviews about the results of vital bulb therapy comparing with the root canal treatment, and with it influence actually the relation of cardiovascular disease, especially that in vital bulb therapy we are filling the root canal with a normal pulp tissue. So this is something that comes into my mind. Just want to share with you. Maybe it will be in the future. Maybe it will be for allowing me to add my comments, Professor.
Yeah, that's a very interesting suggestion, to think about vital pulp therapy and look at the cases that they have vital pulp therapy, then we prevent from the apical periodontitis. What a nice point that you mentioned. I know you are a very fantastic endodontist and you can remove pulp tissue very meticulously. But when you speak about vital pulp therapy, I will be surprised that, oh God, Talal is the master of removing pulp tissue, but he likes to keep the pulp tissue alive. That is really good. That is really good. I really like that. Thank you, Talal.
Thank you.
Okay, before we go ahead, I'm going to ask everybody to turn on the videos, please, because we are going to take a group photo at the end. So please turn on your videos, and then at the end, please turn on your microphone, because after the talk of Professor Kayahan, we are going to put our hand together for these two really, really nice people that they join us today, Zahra and Alexander. They did a great job, great job. They make our afternoon very, very productive and very nice. And before I ask Professor Kayahan to speak, Alexander, as one of our way of this online journal club, we are going to give a mark to the postgraduate student who present this one. So you are the person who can give the mark. You can even say that Zahra should give us another lecture because this lecture wasn't good. Or if you think this is a good, just give him something out of 100. What is your idea? And then Professor Kayahan, I ask you also to give us your number, Talal, everybody, Ibrahim and everybody. Okay, Alexander, what do you think of Zahra? She should stay in this year for another year or not?
Before it, may I add something?
Yes, go ahead. Last
Yes. I think one of the benefits of an umbrella review is we found the gap in knowledge. We now know that we need high quality primary studies. It's thanks to this umbrella review. Oh, now you can.
Okay, so this is the answer to Hadi, and also she tries to bribe you. Be careful, Alexander.
So this is just the top, you know. I believe her presentation was outstanding, and she's a kind and very nice person, and she completely understands the problem. She actually really carefully present the problem, and she really carefully present the structure. Also, she find maybe some potential inadequacies of the answer tool, but I believe that she deserves all excellent grades that you can give to her. Thank you, Dr. My name for the presentation of our paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your great presence and help us. Okay, so I'm going to ask Professor Mehmet Beber Kayahan, my friend and our leader, our president of Asian Pacific Endodontic Confederation, to close the session, and also ask again everybody to turn on their videos, their microphones for the final appreciation of our amazing author, first author, Professor Alexander Jakovlix, if I pronounce his family name correctly, and Zahra Mohammed. Professor Kayahan.
Thank you very much for this meeting. It was really great. I'd like to thank Zahra. First of all, I'd like to thank Zahra, and I'd like to thank Professor Alexander Yakovlevich. Yeah, right pronunciation, I think. And I'd like to thank you, Professor Nekofar, one of our most important and one of our best opinion leaders in our society. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Professor Ibrahim Tahun, our chef, our leader in education committee. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. It was a great day. It was a great afternoon in these hot days, and it was really perfect. I'd like to give 100 plus 5 stars to Zahra. Really, it was really great presentation. Thank you very much. Please, you close the session because you are the boss of this organization, this valuable organization. And you are our brain, one of the most important brains in our society. Thank you, Nekofa.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Thanks, everybody. And thank you all. We put together our hand for Zahra and Alexander first. Thank you very much, everybody. So next month on Friday, we have Professor Talal and Nahlavi's students. Talal, you should choose your student, and we will talk with each other, and you choose one of your for presentation. Talal, yes, go ahead.
Okay.
So you
we'll
agree?
keep it, master. Okay,
Okay.
I will see the potential and I will keep you posted. Hopefully, I will try to do it. No problem.
Okay,
I'll
that's
try
great.
to choose. Okay, I will try
That's
to
great.
choose. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Talal.
Thank you very much, everybody, and
you.
see you in next month. Goodbye, and thanks again from Zara and Alexander.
Just to say hello to my friend, Dr. Mohsen Ramazani.
Okay,
Hello,
you go
hello,
ahead.
dear
Now
man.
it's
Hello.
time for
Hello,
socialization.
Mohsen, how are you?
Hello, old friends. Hello, old friends.
Hello, Mohsen. Hello.
Hello, dear Mehmet. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, goodbye, everybody,
Take
and
care of
follow
yourself.
us on
Goodbye.
appraisetoraise.tums. Thank you
Thank
and
you.
goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Thank you all.